All right. Katie, did you want to share anything? Okay.
I'm excited to learn some things today too. So,
Great. I just wanted to preface the conversation today that this is on behalf of the Spark Users Group Reports Committee. This committee currently does not have anyone in the leadership role. You don't need to know a lot about reports to be in the position. You're more of a convener. So if you are good at, you know, drawing interest and collating dates and scheduling things, feel free to volunteer. It's not a lot of work, maybe an hour a year, and you attend a couple meet. Okay, maybe a couple more, more than a couple hours or 1 hour, but not too much, not too taxing. A few meetings a year that are an hour in length. So I will stop rambling and hand it over to Vince. So, Vince, can you just confirm that you can share your screen?
Yep, let me try that. Let's find the tab. Okay, is it showing Spark with the new report?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
So I'll hopefully be able to switch. There's a few other screens I'll get to eventually, but this is where I can start. So my name is Vince Giordano. I'm the director of the Juniata County Library in Mifflintown. It's like halfway between State College and Harrisburg. A number of years ago, we had a volunteer here who was often running into patrons asking, "Do is there a good way to see what the next book is in a series?" And primarily, this is with adult fiction. Now we can open the book, and usually there's something in there saying the series order, or we can go onto a website or search a catalog. But we thought, what if we could just put a label on it, like a spine label? So we started to do that, but to even get there, we had to go through and look at our records and then um, look and see, do we have any that are missing, and then start adding the labels. So that was a long process, and we're still not even done. Um, we're up to like the L's. There was like a hiatus there for a while where we stopped, but what I'll do is I'll show three things. I'll show the reports that I use in Spark that get me circulation numbers and series information. Then the second thing is I'll show you in Excel what those look like and how we can take what's in Excel out into the stacks. And then third, I'll show some examples of the finished product and what they look like and limitations and things that we do run into. Okay, so I shared this folder in Spark Evergreen that has these two reports. One of them, it's called 2020 4-3 with CircInfo. And the other one is count circulations all time and this year, aged and active. Elizabeth was nice enough to help me take a report that I had and recreate it to include all the circulations. So let's look at this first one that deals with the let me just make sure I'm looking at the right one. Yeah. Okay, so this first report gets all of the MARC record tags and fields and gets it to us in Excel. So we filter it by our library and then by the location. So the location we're dealing with is fiction. And then we're making sure the filter has a 490 value and it's not deleted. And then the columns that it spits out, basic information on where the book is. And then down here, the series and the value, and also the last circ date. And then the second report, we have to at this time I create two and then I have them side by side. So this one takes all of the books in that collection and includes all their circulations. So again, getting it to our library, to the shelving location, not including any that are deleted. Basic info. And then down here, the active circs and aged circs and total, as well as the last circ date. Elizabeth, could you refresh my memory when you added the active circs and age circs, how maybe the report I was using didn't capture both, or it had something changed that it needed to be including both of them like this separately?
Yeah, so at the end of 2024, we started aging circulation. And what aging circulation means is it disconnects the patron data from the actual transaction. And so at the 18-month mark, that connection where you can click on, an item and see its recent circulations, at the 18-month mark, the patron, you can't like click and see who had it last. So when you're running circulation reports for historical things, you want to make sure you include active, so everything within the last 18 months, and then aged, so anything after 18 months. So if you're running reports and you're finding things that are a little wonky, or you're not getting really accurate totals, let us know and we can fine tune your report to make sure it includes both active and aged circulation.
Good, thank you. I should have refreshed up on that, but thank you for explaining that. That's
Yep.
important.
It's not something people think about every day, so don't worry about it.
Yeah. Okay, so these are the reports. I've run both of them. The reports can get kind of large depending on your collection size. The report that gets all the MARC series information, this one can be especially large because some books might be part of multiple series or have series information that maybe isn't accurate. And Excel, with Spark into Excel, it doesn't combine those into one row. It has a separate one. So for each um, series entry, it'll repeat that title all over again. So with our fiction section that has tens of thousands of books, with many that are in series, that file can get large. I mean, ours was like about a megabyte, but just giving you a heads up in case the report's taking a while to run. Okay. So I'm going to try this. I'm going to switch over to another window. Okay. Is this Excel sheet showing?
Yes.
Okay. So this is what Elizabeth was just explaining about. This is titles that then include separate columns for active circs from the last 18 months, and then age circs from 2024 or so and before, and then a total. So we want to look at all of that and have a total number. And then let me go over to the other Excel. All right, is this new one showing now, the one that says fiction series at the top?
Yep. May 2026.
Got it. Okay, so this is the next one that has 28,000 rows. Like I was saying, where how it can be big. So you'll notice here, column G, the 490 contents. All of this might not be perfect, so it's a good opportunity to do some cleaning and looking at your record and seeing if things need to be updated. But it gives the series name and then the index series value. It shows over here the book number in the series or just the value that is entered there into the MARC record. Now, granted, this is only what's in the MARC record. You may come across books that are part of a series but don't have these in Spark. So looking in, working with your cataloger to look at adding that correctly, because, not only is looking on the shelf at these spine labels that we're creating helpful, it's also really useful when you're just at the front desk and you're doing a search and you're getting in your Spark catalog search accurate results. So what we put in here will determine that. So it's worth doing both. That's probably why it also takes time too, is you have to possibly do a lot of cleanup work in the MARC record. Okay. So what we would do is we would print both of those sheets and we would go through and find a series. So like this First Law series by Joe Abercrombie. We would look and see, and this can also be a good opportunity to include some weeding, looking and seeing, okay, this series, it does well, it circulates well. Are we missing any in the series? And then look and see if we can buy copies of the missing ones, or do they need to be repaired or replaced? Or do they even need the proper MARC record information to show up? So it's like a large process to go through. So we would look at that side by side with those circulation numbers. And then the finished product, I have two examples. These are what we end up slapping on the spine labels of our books. Does this show up here, the Amish heirloom book?
Yes.
Okay. So working with your cataloger, a printer, labels, and that's a whole other thing, is finding the labels and sizes that work for you, abbreviating them. So, I mean, right there, that's just a quick and easy way for your patrons to find the next book in the series and grab it and go. Now, there is a limitation. Let me switch over to my last image. You have some authors, prolific authors like James Patterson or Michael Connolly, whose books can weave and be part of multiple series. And, if you want to do this, you have to be aware that you might need to look at sizing or limits, because I've seen some James Patterson ones where they're part of three separate series, and before you know it, maybe like half the spine label is covered, and like then at the bottom you have um the call number and maybe a genre and what what space is left. So that's one thing you have to be aware of when you're doing this. But we found that this is a worthwhile pursuit. It takes a lot of work, patiently working on it, but it provides a great opportunity for us to have a collection that is up to date when we're doing searches and is accessible to patrons and staff when we're out in the stacks. Um, and I haven't seen any bookstores do this, so it's a cool thing if you're able to provide this to make it really easy just to find the book and give that to your patrons. Did anyone have any questions for me? That was kind of all I had in a quick run through of it.
It looks like Troy had a question. Is there a reason why the second sheet with the 490 field info had 2 rows per item? It looked like all the rows were duplicated. Item barcodes were the same as well.
Let me pull up that sheet, Troy. Is it? I think it's this one. Okay. Let's look for one. Okay. So let's look at, for example, this title, Last Argument of Kings. It's a duplicate because there's multiple. I'm not a cataloger, so I can't speak real well to this, but it looks like there's multiple listings. And instead of Spark giving to Excel a line that has first law and then a comma or something, and then book 3 and sharing it, it spits it out and puts it into separate ones. Does that kind of sound accurate, Elizabeth? I know we talked about that. It was like a term in
Mhm.
Excel.
Well, actually, when you look at the record in Evergreen, there is a field for each. Here, let me share my screen. Do you mind?
Not at all. Let me stop sharing. Okay, go ahead.
Thanks. Hold on. So when we look at the record, and you'll see this in other reports too, you'll see here's the 490, which has the series info statement, and there's a subfield A, which is first law. So that's going to treat it as one element. And then the subfield V is telling you which book in the series. So first law is series name, and then V is the number in the series. So it's going to have each element. So A is going to have its own line and V is going to have its own line. And like Vince said, it doesn't concatenate them together. It treats them as individual elements unto themselves. Does that help, Troy?
Yeah, I get it. Understood. Yep.
Yep. Thanks.
Say that word 10 times fast. Concatenate.
I typed it about 20 times today and I only spelled it right once. So Jim said they color code their series as well. Jim, how do you have like a color for the genre, or is it just like the author? How do you do that?
I don't know what they do in Clinton County, but what I have seen is like Vince had the series names typed out, which is very nice, and I like that. Some libraries will use like the one series will be yellow and the other series will be purple. And so if they're just doing stickers with a number written on them as opposed to printing a whole label, you can do it with different colored stickers. And then it gives you that visual cue of it's a different series, but then you have to figure out which series it is if you're a patron. So I love the printed labels.
Elizabeth, are you able to share your screen to show for Terry where my shared reports come up?
Yeah,
I can't see it on my end.
yeah. So when you're
Right.
in the Yep. So when you're in the reporter, you should go down to shared folders, and then Vince's username is VG dash June. I think you might just need to share the folders, Vince, unless they're in this monthly reports folder.
Uh, I sh I shared. I have so many folders.
Mhm,
Let me see
no
there.
problem. But they'll be available under his username, Terry.
Okay. I shared another folder,
Okay. Let me
but yeah, Terry, it'll be there. Yeah, try
circ.
that circ one. There. Yep.
Okay. There we are.
Those are the two.
So those two.
Yep, Terry, those are the ones that you can run. Those are the two. Just clone them into whatever folder you want to use and have a blast.
Jim is sharing that they color code the series number under the series name. Thanks.
That
All right.
helps.
Yeah, color coding is always helpful. Any other
Thank you for
questions?
letting me share.
Vince? Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. When we were working on it, fixing it, I was like, oh, I'm sure other people will find this helpful. So I'm glad you were able to share it with everyone. All right. Are there any other questions for Vince? Okay. So I have two reports, and we had shared these a couple years ago at this point. Let me share my screen. And it's looking at the popularity of an author or a genre. So you'll find them in shared reports and you'll look for Pales Davis. And then I have a folder called Collection Development. The one that we're going to look at is there's two for the author. So you can look at author's popularity over time. And this will give you like all of your authors kind of grouped together. And then there's if you wanted to look for a specific author's popularity. So you can clone either of these. If you're like looking to see, say you wanted to see how well an author like Danielle Steele is doing at your library. I was having this conversation with someone the other day, and I was like, you don't really hear a lot of people talking about her anymore. I wonder how she's doing, not like circulation wise. So if you wanted, you could clone this one, and you would go under Actions and then New Report, and you would select your library. You would pick your shelving locations. So where are the books that they write are generally shelved. If you wanted to look at just their audiobooks, you could do that, or you could look at books. If you use book club kits, you could also include those. And then you would put the author's name. I think the results work best if you do last name, comma, first name. And then you'll set it to run. So let me get. So this, I did it on Danielle Steele at Juniata Library because Vince was volunteering to present, so I didn't think he'd mind just sharing his circ data. Yeah, she is doing fine based on her photo. So what it does is it breaks down the checkout library, the title, the author, and then the checkouts per year. So like if you wanted to look at one specific title, like, okay, looks like her title 44 Charles Street is kind of like, it was really popular in 2013 and then kind of isn't been really moving since then. So it'll give you everything, all of the titles based on the circ. And I love a pivot table, so I use them a lot. So all I do is I kind of go up to A1, put my mouse there, and I do Control A and select all of the rows and columns. And I do Format as a table, and you can pick whatever color you want. And then that way you can kind of narrow down. So say maybe you wanted to look at A Perfect Life. You can look at just those numbers and it filters out down to just then. But if you wanted to kind of do a little bit more manipulation, you can do a pivot table. So go under Insert and then Pivot Table. And you want it to make sure it says Table 1 and put it in a new worksheet, and it'll push it out to a new worksheet. So this is a circulation of all totals of all of her titles over time. So starting in 2012 to this year. So probably wouldn't include this year if I was evaluating her as over time, but just for instance, I did the whole gamut. But you can see she kind of has peaks and valleys. Like 2019, she was really popular, but then she kind of dropped off. And she kind of came back in 2025. So there's still an interest there. So maybe if you're a library that's buying multiple copies, this would help you kind of evaluate, do you really need all those copies? I also did another one where I just did, okay, what was her most popular title? And this is looking at the title in the rows and the circ count in the values. And you can sort using the pivot table to see the largest. So the most popular was The Sins of the Mother, and the least popular was Now and Forever and A Gift of Hope. So kind of giving you an idea of how an author is doing over time. If you wanted to look at, say, all of your authors, That is also in that same folder. It's just author's popularity over time. You don't have, it runs the same way, but you don't have to indicate a specific author unless you wanted to. So again, I made this all a big table, and then I can kind of filter out by author or year to kind of narrow down. So if we wanted, we could sort to like the highest if you wanted. So again, there's that Danielle Steele, The Sins of the Mother from 2013. That's the most popular author and title at the Juniata Library, followed by Sandra Brown. But again, if you wanted to do a pivot table to kind of get a little bit more bigger numbers, all combined for like the author as a general, I have that here. Obviously, James Patterson is the most popular. But you'll notice that James Patterson has a date after his name, but Danielle Steele doesn't. So this is where cataloging comes in, where you'll want to make sure you're looking at all of the James Pattersons. So you'll see if we go to the little drop down here, it gives you the option to filter your info. So if we do Patterson, James, you'll see that there's a Patterson without a date and a Patterson with a date. So can make sure we're looking at both authors. That way it'll give you the totals for everybody. I'm trying to see if there's another example. Like Megan Abbott has a middle name apparently. So you'll see some of her books in the records, it has the middle name and then others don't. These also might be different authors, so just keep that in mind. So just giving you an idea of popularity over time for all of your authors. You can look and see who are, some popular up-and-coming authors. If you hadn't heard of Frida McFadden, you can look at your reports and say, oh, all of a sudden she's a newer author and she's very popular. Colleen Hoover, you had things from checking her items out in 2016, but then you saw she really kind of exploded later in the more recent years. Things like that, just to kind of see trends. Like Debbie McComber. Is that how you pronounce that? I never know. She was doing
McComber.
McComber.
But
she was really popular, but not anymore, or kind of fading in popularity. So, just that's kind of a way you could use this report to kind of see who is circulating and who isn't at your library. I also have one on genres. So let me cancel that. It's in that same folder for collection development. There's the genre report for if you are a single location, and then if you do resource sharing, you'll want to use the one that has the resource sharing info on it. That way you can get holdings and info from other libraries that you're getting materials from. This one's interesting because this one will, again, spit out multiple rows. So this is looking at the 655 field. You can use this report for really any subfield or for any field if you wish. So if you wanted to do 650 or 651, 655 is genre. But you'll see there are some like odd values, like this is not helpful. So what we really recommend in this one is looking at just the A, X, and Z. Katie? Okay. Or A and X are the definitives. So that'll give you your Christian fiction or spy fiction, things like that. So this is narrowing it. Oh, I'm going to crash Excel. Okay, there we go. Don't have too many Excel spreadsheets open. So this is giving it very specifically down to the title level, so that way you can look and see if it's a specific author that's doing really well, or the title. So again, I did a pivot table on this one, and you can see that romance fiction is very popular, followed quickly by detective and mystery fiction. Um, Obviously, every title is going to have multiple 655s, depending on how granular you get in your cataloging. So the more details in your cataloging, the better. Uh, you could see like Bildungsromans Romans were really popular for a little while. They're fairly consistent, actually. Humorous fiction, paranormal, just general fiction's popular. But then you can see that large type books, well, technically a genre is also a format. So we could look at that if we wanted to too in another report, see how well your large type formats are doing over your regular. You can use this report as well for that because it's using a different element of the cataloging. Just it gives you some ideas of what kind of information your patrons are interested in. Novellas and cozy mysteries were not really well circulating, but now they're definitely getting more popular at Juniata. So those are just a couple reports that I have shared that people have used to kind of curate and kind of guide how they're reading or developing their collection. Anyone in attendance today? Has anyone used these for their own projects? Give them a minute to type, or you can unmute yourself if you wish.
This is Vince. I found seeing you list the Colleen Hoover and some of those authors, the trends is really neat. I've kind of noticed that in my head with some general numbers that I've seen, but to actually see that trend where she was our most popular and most checked out author for like 2 years straight and has like nosedived at our library.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to have numbers for that and these the sort of genres is interesting to have too, to see how the trends go.
Yeah, everyone loves love and murder. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Like across libraries, like no matter what you're looking at, those are the most popular genres. But if you wanted to get a little bit more granular, say you only wanted to look at Katie, is that the more specific? Okay, so if we took out A, you'll see that, oh, what am I doing? Sorry.
Yeah, so the V's are going to be your fiction, your juvenile fiction. Some of those should not be.
Yeah, some of this is, this is a cataloging error. It needs to be
Yeah.
adjusted. So,
And then X is going to be your like subterms. So it might be like murder, mystery, rural conditions. So they're more useful in combination, the
okay.
subfields, than they are individually. So it's a little hard to interact with them in the Excel format. The exception being kind of the juvenile fiction ones, if you wanted to narrow down to only ones that are juvenile.
Mhm. So it's a starting point. Any other questions or any other reports people are using to kind of do their collection development? Okay. Let me stop sharing my screen. Are there any reports questions in general that we could help answer today?
This is Danette. Can I ask a question for Vince?
Yeah.
So we are actually in the process of doing the same thing that you have there with the series being numbered. And when we're relying on that report, we're assuming that the 490 has the series information in it. Have you run into many where like it wasn't listed there and you had to go back and you're like, oh, I do have book 2, but it's not in the MARC records?
Yeah, not tons, but when I'm dealing with older series, older books, I run into that.
Okay.
So I go into Ingram or Fantastic Fiction or some other sources I trust and have to compare the two. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
tedious part is
Yeah, because
we
we've
do
just been
run into
pulling
that.
them out of off of like Fantastic Fiction and it's taking forever. So this report is going to save us huge amounts of time and just have to go back and double check then.
Yep. I
Awesome. Thank you.
find I find that books released at least in the last 10 years have the record with the series and everything is good. It's when I'm looking at some older series, it could be hit or miss at times.
I will share, this is the title we were looking at earlier, that you'll see the series info is first in the 490, but it's also in the 800. So if you are not seeing it in the 490, do a spot check
Yeah.
and see if it's in the 800. You can also, your cataloger can add it to the 490, so future reports that you run will have it, but it may also be in the 800.
Yep. I've also seen them sometimes in the 830 field.
Okay. Is that something, Katie, we want them to update?
Oh, you're dragging me back to my cataloger days here. I
Sorry.
think it is supposed to be in both the 490 and one of the 8XX fields. I don't know that you're supposed to have both 800 and 830.
It's not often
No.
that I see 830s. I usually just see the 800 if I will see an 8, but there's the occasion I do see the random 830.
Trying to.
And then with checking Fantastic Fiction, I would say 99% of the time they're correct, but I have noticed sometimes where their series numbers or their publication dates are off a little bit. So it's always worth checking someplace else like Ingram or somewhere if you're not sure.
Yeah, I've caught that as well. We've actually also just gone directly to the author's website if they have one, because that usually gives us some pretty accurate information.
Yeah.
Good thinking.
Okay. So the 490 and the 830. So not that we're going to give you a cataloging lesson, but just keep in mind that they could be in multiple spots. Any other questions or?
I do have one, just kind of like out of curiosity for Vince. So for all of your fiction materials, do you also shelve all books by the same author alphabetically by the title? And if so, how are you working that in with the series not being necessarily alphabetical in order?
So that's a good question. Like, let's take James Patterson, for example. At the beginning of all the Patterson books, we'll put all of his series and we'll put the series alphabetical. So Alex Cross is going to be at the beginning and then, work your way down to NYPD Red. and then all the books in that series, one through whatever. And then once you get done with his series, the way we shelve it is then it's non-series books, alphabetical by title. In working on this, I've checked with some other libraries. The Du Bois Library, or one of them in Clearfield, I think they shelve their fiction books when it's in an author. They shelve it um, by release year, oldest to newest. That's one way to do it that I hadn't thought of. But yeah, we'll put them all in the series, alphabetical by the series name, numbers, and then the series afterwards. And we've gotten even so granular of like when it's a title where it's like the 32, do we put it under TH or is it a number? If it's a number, do we put the numbers at the beginning, the end? I haven't come up with a definitive answer to that. So yeah, it's like one thing one thing leads to another.
I think that's a good way of doing it. Doing it, all the series together alphabetically and then non-series alphabetically.
Yeah, a lot of people are looking for a specific series sometimes, so having them all grouped together is helpful.
We we found this was a good time to weed out old series and old books. We might have books part of a series, but a lot of these books that for some reason we had, maybe they were popular years ago, the Avalon romance books that look like they're from the 90s or 80s with drawings or whatever the covers. Um, those just haven't circulated for us in years. We weren't sure if we would be able to make it work, but we actually were able to weed out enough that now we're starting to have no books on our bottom shelves. We have an older population here in Juniata County, so the kneeling down, bending over to reach down for a book, that makes it easier. Um, I don't know, maybe one day we'll have nothing on the top shelf, but yeah, it's a good opportunity to get to know your collection and weed out things that just aren't checking you out anymore.
All right, thank you. Anything else? All right. Well, if there aren't any other questions, we can adjourn for the day. Thank you, Vince, for sharing your report. It was really helpful, and I think you've inspired a lot of people to start evaluating their series holdings. Again, if you are interested in helping with the reports committee, please let us know and reach out to any of us here on the PAILS team. And if you are interested in any other reports topics, types of reports, things like that, please let us know. I thought this one was interesting, and so I decided to set a meeting. So if you find one that you want more information about, or you want to kind of ask how everyone else is doing something in terms of reporting or related to anything else in library services, can convene a meeting and set it up for you. All right, I'm gonna stop the recording just in case there's